And the interesting thing is that the social bit is much more important. So what is it that's going to make it so interesting for us here? Well, I've been doing some work with colleagues in Lisbon and here in the United Kingdom. And we've been doing a lot of research using systematic indexing to try and identify a way of mimicking what the human brain does when it looks at stuff online. And what we were able to find is that we can find semantic values relatively easily. And human beings can recognize those values better than one can imagine. And so we find that the DNA of the social media is about values, it's about exchanging values. And where we have shared values and shared understanding of mutually held values, it creates relationships. Work by Brina Amaral presented to the Bled conference last July. He did a very, very good paper in which you can identify how this network works and how amazingly people completely disparate in different countries, different continents, with different interests come together because they share values. And the speed at which they come together is absolutely astonishing. And by and large, they stay together. Then we did some more work. I presented a paper to UPIRA last week, where we could identify that relationships were a manifestation of trust. What we did was, we looked at the history of Toyota online, and we'd taken 1,000 citations at random every month about Toyota going back over 3 years. And then we took every citation every day for a period up until a week ago, last Saturday, and go back again. And of course, Toyota was just like any other motor manufacturer until about September last year, and then we started seeing new things popping up about their crisis, about their issues. They were really issues. Issues are all right. Managers manage issues, that's what they're paid for. But of course, what happened was that the way they managed it got to a point where the managers were no longer able to identify with solutions to these issues, and as a result you could see that the agenda was being driven by people external to Toyota. And we can nail down to within a few days when Toyota went from having a lot of issues to handle to being in crisis. Now, if we can do that, we can say, right, we can identify when an organisation moves into crisis. Then we're beginning to see some extraordinary things happening in terms of what we can do for managing relationships and, of course, in the Toyota instance, managing trust. Okay, so what we did is we're talking about reputation. Okay, so reputation. What the use is reputation? You can't eat it, you can't sell it, you can't buy it, it's no use at all. It's an intangible. But of course, what reputation does as an intangible is it turns tangibles into value. And it's ironic because it is Bishop, I can't remember his name, the head of Toyota, Mr. Toyota. I can't remember his name. They said that Toyota was about knowledge. The company was about knowledge. Knowledge made cars, he said, and the value of components is derived from the codification of intangible knowledge to apply at optimum time and place to make cars. Without that knowledge, you can't make cars. And codifying to make relevant knowledge available when it's needed turns tangible stuff of no value, no specific value at all, into really tangible opportunities, into really tangible products, into tangible services. Even tangible enough to convert them back into intangibles called money. And what does it sound like? It does, it sounds like Google. So now we're discovering a new type of internet that's actually there to change the value of society. So I'm now talking, and the value of our economies. So I'm now talking about a very different form of internet. One that actually does change the way that society is run and can. And so now we can say, right, my colleagues who are going to follow me, what is the value of social media? Well, social media, and I have a slightly different definition to Michael, is about online relationship management. Turns relationships into reputation building capability. And that then makes tangibles worth, through a device, money. So if you just pause there for one moment and say, right, what we're talking about tonight is how we can use the internet to change the wealth of a nation or a world. And I'm saying we do this through the building of relationships. It's called public relations. I'm very keen about this. I'm very pleased to have here this evening the chairman of the West of England Chartered Institute of Public Relations, which is wonderful. Because I'd like to see the Institute playing a much bigger role in this, because I think that we've gone past the day when marketing had a real say in what's happening online. Sure, they put up the websites, and yes, they can do the affiliate marketing, and they can do the SEO, and they can have creative adverts on television to try and drive people, and by drive I mean the word drive people unwillingly to their websites to buy their ridiculous products. The alternative, of course, is to invite somebody to your website because you have something interesting that would be of use and have to the online constituency. So I have a particular view of marketing online, and I have to say, well, you can probably gather I'm really enthusiastic. So what we're looking at is people who can be involved in building relationships, and that's called public relations. And we do that by exposing our values to other people and seeing how they work in terms of building more and better relationships. And we're in a very happy position because we're able to take the theory and practice of public relations across Western Europe, which we have adopted in this country, and at the same time we adopted those theories and practices from the United States of America, and they work very well, and we put those together. And we've done that at a time when one language has become dominant because of the internet. It's called English, and guess what? We're in England. It's very helpful. And because we have this lingua franca of the public relations in this country is very well placed to do things, extraordinary things, in this new era of online public relations. The other thing that we have is that we have good relationships with the really big markets. You know, there are more English-speaking Chinamen in China than there are certainly in the United Kingdom. In fact, English-speaking Chinamen very soon will be more dominant than any other form of English-speaking nation. And the same happens in India. The other extraordinary thing is, of course, that in China, there are more, well, would you believe, public relations consultancies owned by British public relations agencies than there are from any other nation. We already have a foot in that camp, and certainly the same, very similar numbers are true in India. We have this huge reach, and we have these skills, and if we can manage to learn about how we're going to use our skills and our creativity and what we know about public relations in social media, then we have big markets, not UK markets, big global markets. And I think that's